Okay, today our notes are on equations with decimals. So we'll solve equations with decimals. We'll put our steps over at the side of the paper. If you notice there's 5 steps. However, we're not going to necessarily do all the steps in every problem. But this is the order. The first thing we're going to do is either multiply by 10 or 100. Multiply by 10 or 100. Next will be the distributive property, if there is any to do. Then combine like terms. If there is any terms to combine like terms. Next is add or subtract. Remember, that's to get rid of the constant. Add or subtract. And the last step is to multiply or divide, and that's to get rid of the coefficient. Okay, so now to the left, please write the following. This says to move decimal. To move decimal. Just put a line under it. The next column, multiply by, just abbreviate, multiply by. And then over here, we're going to put some examples. Okay, I'll come back to this in just a moment. Okay, don't write this, just simply watch. If I have the number 7.5 and I multiply it by 10. 0 times that, yada yada. I put a space holder, 1 times 5, 1 times 7. That gives me 750. Move the decimal 1 space and I get 75. So if I have the number 7.5 and I multiply it by 10, like I did here, my answer is 75. Right? So basically all I did is just move the decimal over 1 space. Because now the decimal is right there. So I just moved over 1 space. So if I multiply by 10, it'll move the decimal over 1 space. Let's try this again. Let's take 7.5 and let's multiply it by 100. So I don't want to bore you with the details, but if I multiply this out, I get 7,500. I move the decimal over 1 space. It is now 750. So if I take 7.5 times 100, it's 750. I move the decimal over 2 spaces. That's what happened there. It went over, instead of just 1 space, it went over 2 spaces, and I had to put a 0 there. So if you want to move the decimal over 1 space, multiply by 10. And let's take an example. Let's use 3.4. If I have 3.4 and I multiply it by 10, it's now going to be, I move the decimal over 1 space, it's 34. See? And the decimal is right there on the side. So now it's not a decimal anymore, it's just 34. It's a whole number. Now if I want to move the decimal 2 spaces, I multiply by 100. Okay, we'll just do 2 examples. So if you notice on this example, we have decimal points in there. That's pretty hard to do. But we know how to eliminate that simply by multiplying by 10 or 100. So let's see, how many spaces do I need to move the decimal to make it a whole number? If I move this over one space, it's a whole number. If I move this one space, it's just 53, negative 53. And if I move this one space, it'd be negative 47. So it looks like just one space. That means I'm going to multiply all this by 10. So it moves it over one space. That means I have to do the same thing over here. On this, what do you do to one side, you must do to the other side. I'll also multiply that by 10. Okay, now we're just going to use our distributive property. 10, remember, you can take the outside times the inside. 10 times 0.2, you just move the decimal over one space. It's just a 2. 2x. And over here, 2 times negative 5.3, it just moved the decimal over one space. 53. Because I'm doing 10 times that number, so I'm just moving the decimal over. Then over here, same thing. 10 times negative 4.7 is just negative 47. Look at that. We eliminated the decimals that were in there. We eliminated them. And now it's just a two-step problem. That's easy. So our first step, add 53. So that gives me 2x equals, right, because this is gone. 53 minus 47, what's that, 6? Because 53 take away 47 is 6. And you can see your answer, but if not, simply divide by 2. X equals 3. All right, so that's how we eliminate decimals. Multiply by 10 or 100. Again, notice how the equals is lined up. Here's our second example, second and last. Again, we have decimals, 0.11, 0.07, 0.51. Okay, it looks like we have to move the decimal over 2 spaces, this one 2 spaces, and this one 2 spaces. Now, if one of these only needed to move 1 space, I would still have to multiply by 100 to move them over 2 spaces. So this whole side here, I'm going to multiply by 100. What I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side. Okay. Just like using the distributive property, 100 times 0.11 is just 11. Right? We're moving the decimal over 2 spaces. So that's 11y. Move the decimal to 2 spaces because we're multiplying by 100. That would be just 7. And this one over here, move the decimal over 2 spaces. This would be 51. Now we just have a simple two-step problem. Subtract 7. That's gone. 51 minus 7 is 44. You can see your answer, but I'll still do the last step. Divide by 11. And the answer is 4. 11 goes to 44 4 times. Okay, so basically just eliminated the decimals by multiplying by 100 on both sides.